No fouls on these three-point attempts. Haliburton in a hurry. Haliburton lunging, firing a three, no good. And fittingly, Isaac grabbing it with Franz Wagner scooping it up. And that's the end of the game.
What is up, Pacers Nation? You are listening to the Pacers Post Up, brought to you by the brothers of basketball, Brad and Ryan. Pacers fall to the Magic 90-94 in Orlando on Wednesday night. It was another head-scratching performance from Tyrese Haliburton, 3 of 14 from the floor. And despite a 12-point fourth quarter from Benedict Mathurin, Blue and Gold looked out of sync, folks, and they head home to a weekend series against the Heat. A lot of questions to be answered. We're diving into that and more right here on the Pacers Post Up. All right, Pacers fans, we are back for yet another episode of the Pacers Post Up. You know, we don't usually do these one-game instant reaction episodes. It's not really our style, our cadence on this show, but as we're starting to get into the season and as things are unfolding and we have this true up and down kind of roller coaster nature of the start, Ryan and I were sort of texting last night, and it kind of made sense to jump on here before we've got, a home and home against the Heat Friday and Sunday this weekend. So it's just an interesting deal, Ryan, with this team, because we come out of Sunday and we're riding high. Yes, you had the loss to Charlotte, which was abysmal, and we laid that out on the last episode. But you really felt like you saw things start to click. And against a team that, going into the season, we all put at the top tier of the Eastern Conference. Obviously, that has not been the Knicks' reality here to start the season. And some of that was probably expected due to, the integration of new guys, all the roster changes, etc. But you felt like on Sunday we beat a good team. And we got some of the best performances of the season, frankly, out of our key guys, and particularly Tyrese Haliburton. And I don't want to make this entire episode a referendum on Haliburton, but we're going to talk about him. But last night was just another case of, good Pacers, bad Pacers, and it was really bad for large stretches of that game. So we're going to spend a little time kind of breaking it down. Ryan, I'm as always, I'm just going to turn this to you and sort of ask you for your instant reaction on last night. What did you see? We'll get into some of the numbers, some of the why behind maybe what's going on, but where's your head at after, we drop to Orlando and another sub 100-point performance with the offense looking pretty terrible overall.
And that's exactly where I was going to go. Is one of the biggest storylines of this season is the offense, and something that a lot of Pacer fans like myself weren't really concerned about coming into the season, running back largely a lot of the same group and being one of, if not the most effective offense in the league last year. And so the question is, why? Why are we having such huge up and downs? What's going on? You hit on it. We're going to talk a little bit of Tyrese, but wanted to look even a little bit further on it. And one thing I think we have to take in consideration is we're missing two starters.
Yeah.
Now, right now, it looks like Mathurin will likely end up being a starter, but still huge two pieces with Nembhard and Nesmith. And we felt that even on the offensive end, even though we talk a lot about their defense, obviously missing those guys. What's really hurt it, I think, is the rotation changes that have come out.
Yeah.
If you look back at our last three games at our bench scoring, 14 points, 16 points, and 17 points.
Wow. Coming
from the best bench in the league, we've seen that now moving Shepherd into the starting lineup, Mathurin now in the starting lineup, and, playing guys, and we'll get to touch on Furphy and his first basket,
Yep.
and he actually looked great off the bench in his limited minutes, but we've seen, I think it's just kind of everybody's playing different roles now. We're relying really heavily on starter minutes now, even with that.
Yep.
They're much higher, and when we get into these high-paced games, which we want to play, but when you have guys like Tyrese and Siakam playing 38 and 39 minutes, it turns in, we see legs. Siakam's fourth quarters haven't looked as good as, starting off. And if you look at Tyrese specifically, he had 8 assists, I think, in the first 8 minutes of the game.
Yep.
Finished with 3 beyond that, clearly, and we'll get back to him, but I think that's one thing that I've even overlooked. No Nembhard, no Neesmith. Bench is now changed and playing different guys' minutes, and obviously we know Jackson and Wiseman also being out, but I think that's definitely hurt us on the offensive end.
It's a great point. It's not something that I really thought of, honestly, from a minutes perspective, but you see Haliburton has 40 minutes, Siakam 39 last night. I want to say it was similar numbers against the Knicks, maybe not quite yet. Mathurin 41, Turner 39. That game, Haliburton goes 35, Siakam 34. So what you just outlined passes the eye test for me, in the sense that I said this last night to the folks I was watching the game with. They looked tired. Tyrese looked tired. He was gassed. And some of that, I think, is a byproduct of Orlando plays a really physical brand of basketball, and their length and size was certainly wearing on us. I think some of what you're talking about in terms of the offense and just sort of connecting, if we can connect a thread through all of these various points, the ball pressure was a real challenge again last night. And our, particularly, without Nembhard on the floor, and if TJ's not on the floor, Mathurin and Tyrese are not the strongest ball handlers. When Suggs was getting up into either of them, it was apparent that they were struggling. Yeah. The double teams were coming. I just went back and watched the fourth quarter again before we jumped on here. A lot of doubles coming from the high ball screen action with Turner, and that's how we were initiating the offense a lot in the fourth quarter. I just went back and watched that quarter because I wanted to kind of, see if there was something that stuck out to me, and ball pressure was it. And we've talked about that again, or I should say we're talking about it again, but we started talking about that in the Boston game with Peyton Pritchard and obviously the enormous comeback that they mounted where our offense largely disappeared. So it's a little perplexing. I think the rotation piece is probably, we're going to find out, because as right now, we know we're not going to get Neesmith until December. Nembhard could be another couple weeks. Yep. We're going to find out whether or not they can get some continuity with these other guys and sort of shore some of that up, or if is it something else? I mean, I guess I'm going to start with Tyrese, because we have to start there. He has to be better. When he has been better, we've won. And when he's looked like he did last night, we've lost. I think last night it was a 3 of 14 performance. He does get the 8 assists in the first quarter, and we end up scoring. I want to say last night in the first and third quarters, I believe we scored 27, and then the second and fourth we scored 18. So that speaks to the bench a little bit, not really helping us out. But sticking with Tyrese, because I have a tendency to get all over the place. What are you seeing? What's working for him? What's not? What do you make of a performance last night, following up what was, really what we've all been, the Knicks game was what we were all asking for, and then he comes out last night and finishes in single digit scoring and does get the 11 assists, but it's after, a pretty ineffective 3 quarters to close the game.
Yeah, I think you made a really good point on the ball pressure, and specifically with the Magic's roster, Suggs might be one of the best point attack defenders at the guard position. Then you have KCP, Anthony Black. All those guys really like to get up in your grill, and I think that's kind of the words out a little bit on Tyrese with that. A little bit more ball pressure, get it out of his hands. He starts to get out of rhythm. I still think when I watch him, you were touching on how he looked gas. I think there's something with the back still. There have been a few pictures on him on the bench where he's kind of like wincing almost. Yeah. That brace is not nothing. We've seen it now for a long time. So is something lingering? I could see it. We've talked a little bit about it. I think he's still missing a ton of shots short. I think he had that one stretch where he hit 2 threes in a row, but the rest, all the step backs from deep seem to be falling just a bit short. And you could say, some of them it doesn't seem like he's getting his feet under him, although that's kind of his game half the time.
Yeah, it's a little of a shuffle step.
Yeah, so I don't worry about that as much, but We've seen it. I think I saw a tweet that in our wins this year, he's averaging close to 22 points, 9.5 assists on 48.5% shooting. In our losses, he's at like 9 points a game, 8 assists on 28% shooting. Almost a 20% difference in shooting. And we need him. Your best player has to be good to be consistently winning games in this league, and that's why we're not.
Yeah. I mean, he goes 1 for 4 in the fourth quarter last night. 3 points. He made the dunk in transition there at the very end and had a technical free throw, and they got the rare double delay of game call. But I mean, Ryan, he's 1 of 4 for 3. Pascal Siakam, who finished with, I've got it in front of me, 25 points last night. He took 1 shot in the fourth quarter. I think some of that speaks to him being gassed and just not having the legs. Outside of Haliburton and Siakam, who each had 3 points, the only other guy that scored was Benedict Mathurin. Everybody else was 0 for. And frankly, we started that fourth quarter. I believe the lineup was TJ, Furphy, Obi, Siakam, and I think it was Walker. So that's and Siakam played the entire fourth quarter, gets 1 shot. And TJ was 0 for 3 to start. I mean, frankly, we didn't score until about 7.5 minutes, and that was the Pascal 3. We get to technical free throw at 6.5 minutes, and then Mathurin did not score. I found this interesting until the 4:48 mark. He had 12 points in about 4.5 minutes. So that was one, I guess, bright spot. And we should probably talk about Ben for a little bit because it was an okay game for him. The stats didn't tell the entire story because he scored some of that stuff in garbage time. I've got some thought. I mean, I guess, what did you see from him last night? He finishes with 23 and 12. So statistically, right what you're looking for. I mean, the rebounds are unbelievable. But what are your thoughts on Ben's performance kind of carrying us there down the stretch?
Yeah, there was a moment, and I was watching with some friends as well, where it kind of turned in and it felt like the Benedict Mathurin show. Yeah. I didn't realize that he was the only person who was clearly scoring towards the end, but he kind of got that look in his eye, had some and ones, and really, was clearly the only one up for the challenge to close the game. But I was with you that during the game, he had a few of those where he was driving straight into defenders, clearly looking for the foul, not really looking to make the shot itself. And I think we've seen that. And again, I really give credit to the Orlando Magic's defense on this. We knew this coming into the season. They were a mismatch for us, even without Paolo, their size, and really their wing and guard size even. I know Goga had 12 boards, and our bet of, always bet the opposing big seems to be hot, as well as the Franz Wagner, star player over. So that one's riding. But they gave us trouble, and he was out of sync, but I still give him so much credit that even on these games where it does look like he can be out of sync, we're talking about this 23 and 12 last night, the board's still to be good, and he is continually getting better throughout the game.
Yeah, I agree. And Carlisle's talked about it on a number of occasions where you just wait, because he's going to get it going at some point in time. What I thought was interesting last night, and I noticed this again watching it back today, he really struggled finishing when he could not get his body into the defender. And you gave Orlando credit, and I will as well. They were able to defend us without fouling. They had 10 block shots. Jonathan Isaac was unbelievable in the fourth quarter. I think he had 2 or 3 blocks in that quarter. That could be wrong. I know he had 3 in the game, but maybe 1 or 2 in the fourth. Hit some big shots from outside. But when Mathurin couldn't get his body into the defender, it just totally neutralized his ability to finish. And he did struggle in the middle of the game, but this is what we're looking for. This game, while as bad as it was, and I think we ended up getting, at one point they were on a 6-20 run with about 4 minutes left in the game. We still closed it to 4 on 2 occasions. And I didn't love the Mathurin 3 settling there when we were down 4, but this is what you're going to need, particularly if Tyrese is going to look the way that he does. When the ball pressure ramps up, you're going to need to have somebody with that killer instinct. And Mathurin is certainly cementing himself as that player. I do think we have to kind of touch on some of the other guys. Obviously, it's not the bench performance that we're looking for. McConnell did not have a great game. 2 of 9 from the field, and frankly, he's had one of the higher field goal percentages in the league. There was a stat floating around out there that was like he was leading all players in the paint from a field goal percentage perspective. That was not the case last night. But let's talk Furphy. We'll go there first because that's kind of a bright spot. What did you think of Furf's kind of real first, true, I know he's gotten in the game, but true run here off the bench?
It was really exciting to see. I think we're all pretty happy, with the potential he's shown, and it seems like the organization is it well. I love the moments when a player gets his first basket and you can see Obi's running down the court already excited, kind of hoisting him up.
Did he travel?
Yeah, well, there's, in the NBA he didn't.
So, yeah, right. That's right.
It was always exciting to see that, and he had some nice attacks, some really nice boards, and the crazy thing was my favorite play of his was he went up for a nasty dunk attempt. Yeah. Now, he got it rejected, and I think that was probably one of Isaac's.
Yeah.
And Isaac is, that's not, any shame to Furphy. Isaac is one of the best rim protectors in the league. And he went up, though, with aggression, and that's even part of the thing. I was concerned coming in, and we have been very transparent. We're not college basketball people coming in, that some of his combine metrics showed he really wasn't going to be a great athlete.
Yeah.
And that is not the eye test in there right now.
Correct.
He looks quick. I mean, he's not a big guy, but he doesn't look physically outmatched by anybody.
Right.
And so I still think the shot's going to go. We haven't seen that one quite get yet. I don't think he's hit a 3.
No.
But I expect that to still be a strength of his game. But the attacking, the rim, I thought he played solid defense. So to have a guy, I didn't expect him to be getting minutes this early into the season.
No.
But when you have injuries like this, it's next man up, and he'll probably, once we get healthier, lose those minutes. But it's good to see him get a little bit of run, and I think there's no reason to be pretty optimistic with his play.
I too have been really impressed. Frankly, the putback last night was solid. He's bigger than I thought. Like he looks big enough on the court to be a nice 3. A small forward, if you will, and his defense hasn't been terrible. No. I mean, he has shown some lateral quickness, ability to stay in front of guys. I kind of felt bad for him because the run got cut short a little bit. Literally, he cut open his finger last night in the game. They had some infection control timeout, and I don't think he got back on the floor after that. But listen, I look at it like this: you don't want injuries, and frankly, we need guys like Nembhard and Nesmith back in the lineup as soon as possible. But it's almost like the Ben Shepherd effect from last year, where these guys get an opportunity to show something, to get some chops, to feel the pace and the physicality of an NBA game. And if you do need them down the stretch, then they're all better for it. And the team is too. So yeah, I was impressed with him. I frankly, another guy that I just wanted to talk about, Obi Toppin, 20 minutes, 19 minutes, 2 points, 3 boards, 2 assists. He's kind of been a little lost this year. We talk about the rotation and kind of trying to feel out some of these different lineups now that we've got new guys that we're playing. What do you make of Obi? Because he just, from what we saw in the playoffs last year, where he had some 20-plus point games and was highly effective in a shortened rotation, I feel like he's kind of been the lost man here to start this season. I can't even think of a time where we've thrown him a lob this year. Mm-hmm. Can you? I mean,
no, and that's a great point. And in fact, I feel like we've missed a few. There have been a few, and I have no explanation for why. Just the guards haven't quite seen it. But you're right. Last 3 games, I was talking about how the bench scoring's been down. He's been at 4 points, 2 points, and 2 points.
Yeah.
Obviously not what we're looking for. I will say, and I forget exactly what game it was, he tweaked his ankle. Maybe there's a little bit lingering, and we just don't have especially the bigs right now, him running at the 5 at times next to Siakam.
Yeah.
We really can't afford anybody else to go down with size unless we're really going to rely on Freeman to come in. So, I don't know. The shot's been hit or miss. He hasn't hit a 3 in the last 3 games, which was really the revolution to his game last year.
Yeah, he was 0 for 3 last night from deep.
And I think you attribute a little bit to, as TJ gets in a funk and he's the playmaker and the runner of that group, you'll see those guys, because we saw Walker wasn't really in the offense last night either, although I do want to touch on some of his steals last night because he was really getting his hands on a few balls. But I don't know exactly what else, you can attribute to right now with Obi, but he hasn't quite gotten into that swing, and he had a little bit of a good stretch in late October, but hasn't really since then found his rhythm.
Yeah, I guess I would ask this. I mean, talking out loud, we have seen Rick has not really gone away from, other than when TJ was out with illness. He's bringing TJ in. He's pulling Siakam early. He's gone to sometimes Obi, sometimes Walker in that slot, and then he's running TJ and Tyrese together. I know some of this may be a byproduct of you've got Nembhard and Nesmith out, but do you think we see that shaken up at all? Do you think, I guess what I'm trying to get at is we saw, what I'm picturing in my mind is we talked a lot last year about Tyrese and Obi Toppin and the stylistic fit, getting up and down the floor instead of, the Siakam mid-post game. I just don't feel like we've seen a lot of those lineup combinations, and I'd have to go look at how much time they've spent on the floor and all that. I'm just thinking out loud, I guess. I don't know what that number looks like, but does it feel like we need to consider tweaking the rotation? Do we even have the ability to do it right now, I guess?
And that was actually where I was going to go, is he's very limited, obviously, on what he can do. I 100% agree, and even going into the playoffs last year, it was clear that Obi was kind of the guy they liked of the bench to run with the other starters.
Yeah.
He fit that group really well. And Tyrese, TJ's got great vision, so this is nothing against him, but a little taller and easily our best lob thrower on the team.
Yeah.
And so I think you're right that that's probably something. The TJ Tyrese minutes have always been interesting to me because it's, again, that thing where Tyrese becomes kind of the off-ball shooter. And right now, not being effective shooting the ball really is limiting. And so I would like to see if they can have the ability to shake it up. Maybe it's because, again, Obi's got to get that run with Siakam more now, just based on size, because those two are kind of co-anchoring the backup big position right now.
Yep.
And so hopefully with the Nembhard and Nesmith additions, we can get back to a normal rotation, but it's clear that that's kind of been an issue right now, is who's playing with who each minutes, and you want to ride with the hot hand, but when you have nights like last night, nobody really had the hot hand.
No, we didn't. And we got out rebounded again, 51-41. We end up with 17 turnovers. Like I said, they had 10 block shots. We shoot 40% from two, sub 40 for the game. I think we were at 38%. It was just not a great performance all around. And I'm going to, we'll kind of close this out, but I'm going to go back to where we started. I don't think this team can be what we want it to be when Tyrese plays this way. And it's going to, we're going to have to see some level of consistency from him on a night in, night out basis. We don't expect 35 and 14, which is the stat line from the Knicks game, obviously, but it's got to be 21 and 10 or something to where we're just not seeing these lulls. It costs us too much. We get out of flow. And we do not have the roster, particularly right now, to support him having bad games. If he's going to play like that, as much as Siakam and Mathurin are trying to carry the load, it was eerily similar to Charlotte in terms of stat lines. Those were the only two guys that showed up in Charlotte. And then again here in Orlando, we just need to figure out the Haliburton, conundrum, if you will. So with that, I guess, let's just look, as we're bringing this in for landing, we'll look ahead here real quick. Magic take over the third spot. They're 7-6. We're tied. I guess they've got us in fifth right now. I'm not sure what the tiebreaker is, but they've got us. We're tied with New York, 5-6. We've got two games coming up this weekend against the Heat. The first of which is our first game in the NBA Cup. We're in East Group C. So just looking ahead at that, let's spend 2 minutes on East Group C, which we're still the top dog at fifth in the East. We're the top dog in East Group C. The Heat are 9th. The Pistons are 10th. The Bucks are 12th. And the Raptors are 15th. So this is just, the toilet bowl of toilet bowls right now. What do you think we're going to be able to do? Do we have a shot to come out of Group C?
Oh, yeah. Although Vegas has the Bucks favored still to win Group C, which I Vegas, you got some algorithm that I don't fully understand if you watch the Bucks right now, but they do have Giannis. So looking at the Heat, probably need to bet Jimmy Butler because the overs on the opposing star player
Is he playing? Because I thought he might be out.
He's always in and out. I don't know officially.
Yeah, I can look, but if not him, maybe a Tyler Hero bet or a Bam Adebayo. He's not really a scorer, but you never know.
Yeah, but I'm really excited. If you've been listening to this podcast for a while, me and Brad were lucky enough to go to Las Vegas last year to enjoy the NBA Cup run in person, and we'll likely, if we are able to do it again, try at least to get back down there again because we had just an absolute blast out there up until the very end. But I love it. We have, again, we talked last year, the courts are hilarious to me, whether you want to hate on them or enjoy them, especially if you ever do any multi-screens. When you have like a red court next to a bright blue court, it just kind of catches your eye. But our court is really cool this year. Yeah. They just released the jerseys on Instagram, I believe, last night. So go check those out. I thought they're pretty similar to last year's, but I like the white. We don't really care too much about that stuff on this podcast, but it was worth mentioning. So we'll see what we can do. The Heat's always a fun matchup. Bam Adebayo and Turner usually like to get in it. There's some playoff history. There's some FIBA Cup history there where Turner once made it over him and Bam likes to try to put it to him. So should be a great game. Who knows if we'll get the explosive high pace Pacers or if we're going to get more of this Orlando-Charlotte kind of matchup. So excited to see, and hopefully we can start off with a win in Group C.
Yeah, you know what I would tell you that's interesting to look at, and we haven't touched on it really at all this year, but we have, and aside from the Mavericks game, we've played some of our best games at home. You think about Celtics, you think about the Knicks, maybe we're able to get a little run with 2 back-to-back home games here, some continuity. We knew that 5 of the first 8 were on the road. We had said that to kind of kick off the season. So Jimmy Butler is out, at least for Friday. I do love the courts. And for those, again, we don't touch on some of this stuff, like you said, a ton on here, but it is an homage to the late Slick Leonard, Bobby Slick Leonard. It's the Boom Baby court. I'm not sure if you can really see it or appreciate it up close. If you get to the arena, maybe go check out the Kroger Sky Deck because that really will give you the full effect of the Boom Baby, kind of decal or logo on the court. I know the Pacemates have some new jerseys or uniforms, I should say, which is exciting. And it is the white, it's basically a white version of last year's black, kind of that paint splatter color. But those games are always fun. It did, if fans, if you guys were in the building last year for any of those games, particularly the knockout game, the atmosphere is different. The court, it feels very different in the arena. So you've got an opportunity to see that. I think it's NBA Cup on Friday, and then I think we are doing City Edition on Sunday. So definitely worth checking out. Obviously, it's we're riding the wave, like we said, to kick it off. We'll have to see, what the Pacers are able to do over the weekend, and hopefully we can start to figure out what Tyrese Haliburton is or is not going to be. If he's not going to be, if he's not going to be, closer to the version, because right now he's not sniffing All-Star.
No,
he's not even close to being an All-Star, let alone All-NBA. And if this goes on for another 4 or 5 weeks, we're going to be having a very different conversation about him, about this team, about what are we going to do or how are we going to pivot, because there are guys. I mean, whether it's Andrew Nembhard, whether it's Benedict Mathurin, obviously Siakam, etc. We're going to have to probably add a big at some point. I've heard JaVale McGee as a target. Frank Kaminsky is another one that I've heard. No thanks. I'd rather have McGee, frankly, just from a defensive perspective. But there's a lot to sort out. The only saving grace is that the East is wide the hell open. We were in third or tied for fourth or something going into last night. I can't remember how it shook out, but we've still got plenty of time, but we've got to start stringing some wins together and really find that identity again. And we saw it on Sunday against the Knicks, and it was gone by Wednesday. So that's on Carlisle and this team to figure out. Some guys are going to have to look in the mirror. Anything else, Ryan, before we wrap this one up?
Nope. Let's get back to Vegas.
All right. Yeah. Hell yeah. Let's go back to Vegas, and we'll see what the Pacers do this weekend in the first NBA Cup matchup.